Bit of background to Roy. Roy is one of the coaches with E-3. He has been coaching there, well, was one of the founder members and has been coaching there for the last 8 years. And yep. As well as that, has also helped out on a number of public participation projects in Edinburgh as well for me, which has been really, really helpful over the years. Coming out of the previous lockdown, if you can remember back then, what was it that made you decide to have your junior section go back?
I think it was an obvious an obvious step we wanted to take to get the kids, specifically the kids, but everybody, if we could, back into training. I think we've been sharing, unofficially with our members, through Strava and the like, our activities, and it was clear that there was still lots of people training. They hadn't stopped, so yeah, we just wanted to keep try to keep some kind of momentum going.
Excellent, thank you. So, but how did you go about doing that? Can you take us through some of the steps that you maybe took?
Sure, yeah. So we just, communication, I guess, it's the main thing with our members. We went out to our members and sought their appetite, really, appetite to, do what we could. Obviously with facilities were closed, we were restricted to what we could do. But when so for example, did people want to meet up, within the guidelines for a running session, and if there were enough yeses, then we said, okay, we can make it happen, and we set off to work out what the best way of making that happen would be.
So communication is quite a key theme that's coming through from a few of these interviews I've been doing. So did you discuss it as a coaching team as well before you went back?
Yeah. So once we made the decision that we were going to put something on, we just have a simple WhatsApp group call. Might even have used Zoom. We have a club Zoom account. Just got together as a group of coaches and said, A, who's comfortable coaching? Show of hands. B, okay, if you're comfortable, when can we do it? C, okay, now we know we can do it. Are you available? And just things you would normally do when you set up a coaching rota in a club, as all the clubs I'm sure do day to day. And then just the things, the main concerns around that from coaches were, what if one of the kids sprains their ankle, and normally you would be in close with them and you're helping them and you would be administering first aid, so it was these are sort of questions that we bounced around as coaches. Okay, how do we deal with this? Somebody would look at the guidelines. Okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Okay, yeah, we can make that work, and we worked our way through it like that and got people comfortable. Got coaches comfortable with how a session could run, and then it was just about finding a space. Obviously, without any venues, a lot of outdoor venues that would normally have been available to us out of lockdown weren't. They were nervous about reopening and giving us a booking, so we just had to find a green space somewhere and set up a session, which we did.
Excellent. So you just found a completely new space?
Yeah, we did when the venues weren't available, and then obviously when the venues were available, that was another step we had to take. We had to look at that again, and a lot of the venues, particularly Edinburgh leisure venues, quite helpfully issued us with guidelines. This is how your return to a swim session will work. This is the door you'll come in. This is the door you'll go out. This is the chairs you use, etc. This is what you'll do after your session. You can't come in until this time. You must leave by this time. Things that we were used to, but just in a stricter way. But still all straightforward enough to follow. That was for indoor spaces like swimming and indoor halls, etc. As far as our adaptation, the only thing we really had to do differently from day to day, from pre-COVID, would have been the whole process of wiping down and sanitizing. So if we used a set of floor mats to do strength and conditioning session, it was, we had, all the coaches had to be armed with a box of wipes, so that the athletes could wipe down their kit, their mats, etc. in between. But really, that was the only, it's not onerous, but that was the only additional thing that we as coaches had to take, sort of, to be responsible for doing. In all other respects, using the venues was much the same as we'd done before. You arrive at a certain time, you leave at a certain time, and so on. It was fine.
Oh, that's really good. I'm really interested in the fact you got a whole new space as well. Is that something you'll go back to using, do you think?
Well, yeah, outdoor space is fine when you've got the light. When it got dark, when the evenings, the days got shorter and the lights faded, then obviously when you're not paying for space, you don't have floodlights. Typically, you're very difficult to get lit space for free. So that was the only practical issue. But that was fine. By that time, we got back to Forrester, where we have lit, floodlit training space outdoors. So that kind of covered off that element. But and going forward now, it's not going to be a problem finding a green space in Edinburgh, when we've got plenty of light. The issue will come if we have any kind of restrictions come September onwards, I suppose. Don't want to think that's going to be the case, but
yeah,
that's something we can plan for if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, certainly what's coming through from the clubs that I've interviewed is this kind of thinking outside the box, thinking of spaces you haven't really utilised but are actually there on our doorstep. So Pentland Juniors have been using the Pentlands, for their mountain biking, going out doing that. East Fife Juniors have spoken to somebody at a local country park and they've now got free facilities there, and yourself as well, likewise with these. So it is about that, just thinking a little bit differently, isn't it?
Yep. I'd agree.
And not having to pay for it, which is great.
Yeah, and yes, that extends. I haven't mentioned it, but and I'm sure other clubs will have mentioned it. But open water swimming. Whereas without access to pools, as everybody knows, open water swimming has taken there's been a big upturn in the number of people attracted to it within and out with triathlon. But for us as a club, we didn't have that many keen open water swimmers. But as a result of lockdown, we have got water available to us in around Edinburgh, down at Portobello and Wardie Bay. And we used that space for sessions when the weather allowed, and when the pools were closed. And that I like to think that has encouraged more people into taking a dip in open water, whereas before they wouldn't have. They would just have stuck to their comfort zone of the pool. So that's been a positive byproduct, I guess, of lockdown and restricted facilities.
Perfect. So just how were this? So you're back doing the sessions. You were back doing the sessions. How were those sessions received?
Sessions were fine. The sessions were really very similar in content. They're very similar to what we had done before. It didn't, as a coach in those sessions, it didn't feel very much different. The feedback we got from athletes was that it's great to be back. It feels normal, and everybody wants to feel a bit more, inverted commas, normal. I know that there's probably the new normal isn't the old normal, but people like the familiarity of going to a venue they went to before, at the time they went before, and doing the same things that they did before. I don't mean that in a stale way. It was a case of people just being glad to get back to doing some kind of group training rather than training on their own. I think that's probably the key. I think key message I get back from from members, whether it be, you know, joining a Zwift team time trial session. Okay, you're on your own, but you're in a group, or whether it be when we could, obviously, when the guidelines allow, meeting up outdoors in a group for a run session, or on the beach for a swim session. It's the fact is that there's other people around, and yes, you can't go too close to them and give them a big hug like you might have done before, but you can speak to them, and you can find out what they've been up to, and how's your training been going, and what events are you doing, and you know, the things that triathletes like to talk about. You know, that everybody knows that.
And I guess it's a nice community feel as well, and particularly for those, you know, the children and the younger people that are in junior sections, the teenagers that are in junior sections. It you know, did you notice a big difference to them?
Yeah. So, as far as the kids are concerned, for the ones that are too young to tell you anything more than great or thumbs up or whatever, you ask their parents, it's the response says, well, I'm so glad we got back to a session because they've been doing nothing, or they've been bored just playing football in the garden, or you know, structure. And I guess things that the kids that are under 13s typically are not, in my view, as far as our club members are concerned, they don't get up and go for a run at 7 in the morning off their own back. They just don't do that. The older kids, the kids between 13 and 18, yes, they're the ones that do a little bit of training, but like everybody, they get a bit bored doing training on their own, and they want to be in the company of others, even if they're not necessarily chatting away all the time. It's somebody else to chase on a run session. It's somebody else to track up and down a lane in a pool. You know, whatever it is. They miss that, and even if they can't tell you it directly, that's what I see, and through their parents and feedback I get through their parents, it suggests that they were desperate to get back to it. So yeah, I think it's important to get the kids back. Adults can self-motivate maybe a bit longer than kids can, and yeah, we don't want to lose the kids. I think that's the greatest fear, isn't it? That you lose them. That was the same fear in our club. We don't have a big membership, and if we lost a lot of kids, it would have a big dent, make a big dent to our membership, and it would be difficult to go back and to go out and recruit them, recruit new or re-recruit those kids, because they'll have gone off and done something else.
So we're hopefully, fingers crossed, getting to this point now where we can, the vaccine coming, see the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe think we're going to get back to a bit of training soon.
Yep.
What tips have you got for clubs that have got junior sections but are maybe a bit nervous or unsure? What tips or golden nuggets have you got that you could perhaps pass on?
Yeah, so I think all I can really say is the things that worked for us as a club, and I would say that's as early as possible is getting together, the coaches getting together, or those that are responsible for, I guess, the infrastructure of the club. Who does the book? The person that does the bookings with the venues, and the person that makes up the coach rota, and obviously the coaches that are on the rota. I think it's getting together and making sure, or having opportunity to air your concerns, because one coach's concern will be another coach's no-brainer, and that's not to say that a concern isn't valid concern, but if you get together and talk about it, it's like, oh right, well that's okay, and all of a sudden then it's no longer a concern, and that to me is the key to getting you onto the next the next step, which is, if your facilities become available to you, getting in early and making sure you re-secure your slots. Speaking from Edinburgh point of view, and then, but even if you haven't got venues and facilities available, but the guidelines allow you to meet up again in groups of a certain number, then it's back to thinking, okay, you're getting together in a group and saying, okay, who's got some suggestions as to where we could set up a run session, or a bike session, and everybody knows different parts of the country and the area, the locale. So you get people together, and it's like somebody makes a suggestion. Oh, that could work, or no, what about this? All right, okay, and blah blah blah. You just you flesh it out. So is that a nugget? Are there any nuggets? I'm not sure there are any. There's not a magic nugget or a magic wand, but yeah, just talking about it amongst the coaches early, and not leaving it to the last minute, or leaving it to someone else to organise. I think would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think what I'm picking up there is it's like communication with your coaches, but also that sort of consultation with your coaches and your membership to sort of ascertain what it is that they're looking for and what they're comfortable with is key, really.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. I didn't add that bit, but yeah, you're right. The coaches is one part, that's fine, but yeah, there's no point in organising sessions unless there's a demand for it. And yeah, if you've got the ability to poll your members through WhatsApp or a Survey Monkey or whatever it is, then yeah, you should do that. And the sooner the better, because I think the longer time goes on, the harder it is for some people anyway, to members, athletes, to get back into it. Maybe you're more. I think a bit more about your recreational triathletes. Your serious triathletes, I've absolutely no doubt will have been swimming, running, biking away through the best they can through lockdown and the likes. But that's not all. That isn't the full makeup of. Certainly isn't the full makeup by any stretch of our club. So we can't afford to be losing touch with recreational athletes or any athletes. Yeah.
Not at all. No, that's brilliant. Thanks, Roy. That's fantastic.